Hello, everybody. Looks like we got a bunch of people joining all at once right here. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Maggie Caesar. I'm the Senior Customer Marketing Manager. I've got a whole bunch of people joining us today, and I'm going to introduce all of them. But welcome. This is a webinar surrounding the Leadership Success Pillar. And I'm going to cover a couple housekeeping items before I turn it over to some of our speakers today. So first and foremost, we love questions. So type them into the GoToWebinar chat panel as they come to you throughout the webinar. You don't need to wait. I'll be monitoring that panel throughout, and I'll ask the speakers the questions as they come in. And we're also recording today's presentation as well. And if anybody needs a copy of that, if somebody on your team wanted to view it and they missed it, we'll be sure that you get a copy of that. And we've got some customer speakers coming up later, but first I want to turn it over. I'm going to turn it over to Dan Boron, our VP of Customer Success and Support. He's going to go through an overview of the success pillars, and then later on, Matt Bohan, Director of Customer Optimization, is going to be moderating the panel discussion. So Dan, I'm going to give you keyboard and mouse control. See if this works. So click in there and see if it works. There we go. Awesome. I'll see you all in a bit.
Thanks, Maggie. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time to pay attention to this webinar. We're hoping that you get a lot of great information out of this conversation. So first, what we want to make sure that you understand is what are the success pillars all about? And before we get into giving you a quick update, quick overview of what the success pillars are about, I want you to think for a moment on how you can answer this question. And Maggie will go ahead and open up the poll that we have on the right-hand side, and you can answer these questions. So think for a moment, what are the goals of your organization? And answer one of the questions here. And I want you to think, what would your leaders, what would your executives say that you're trying to accomplish? Is it that you want to be more efficient and productive with your processes? Is it that you want to centralize your document management? Do you want to increase stakeholder trust? Or do you want to manage risk within your projects by increasing visibility? Or is it that you want to minimize any wasted resources and by driving collaboration? And so take a moment and answer that, and I'll go ahead and look to see how we're doing here. Got a lot of votes in so far.
Yeah, see a few more coming in.
Yep. That's great. So as we're talking here, it looks like almost half of the folks have voted that they want to be more efficient and productive by standardizing processes. And that's great. And all of these are as important, but you can see these are your goals. And so the question, as we move on to the next slide here, the question is, what is it that's going to make or break your organization's ability to achieve those goals? So we're going to open up one more poll, and I want you to think about, how confident are you that your organization can achieve those goals? And 1 being the lowest, not at all, we're not confident, up to 5, I'm extremely confident. We know that we are fully capable of achieving our stated goals, whatever they might be. And let's take a moment here while we get some feedback from the group. All right, getting a lot of votes in. It's great. We'll give it a couple more seconds here.
All right, I'll close it and
great.
See what we got here.
Yeah, and that's great. I love the confidence, and you see there's a lot of people that are very confident in their organization's ability to achieve their goals. And you got some folks that maybe they're not so confident or somewhat or neutral, and a group of folks there at extremely. And that's great to see. And when you start to unravel where that confidence comes from, a lot of it you're going to find relates to your competencies in the following 5 pillars. So if we go ahead and jump to the next slide here, I'm going to go over real quickly what those pillars are and how we came to that.
I just want to make sure. Do you all still see the? Do you still see the poll?
Yeah, the quick poll is still showing.
Weird. I hit hide and it's still showing. Let me see. Might just kind of be stuck. Let me maybe just try to show it again and hide it because. GoToWebinar can be a little bit clunky. Sorry, folks, just bear with me. It says it's hidden, but it's not. I still see it on my screen too.
No worries. So as we're working through getting to the next slides, I wanna jump ahead for a moment and give you the context for the success pillars. We had a chance to build out the framework, and then we did research to validate that the framework that I'm about to share resonated with what we understood. And we believe, based on the data we're seeing, that organizations that are successful in these pillars are more likely to achieve their goals. And the pillars are really about leadership, vision, administration, technology, and user support. And if you look at a rating of 1 being not competent in that area and 5 being very competent, you will see that and breadth of engagement and support from leaders within the organization. For example, if your leadership is not involved, your organization your initiative will fail. And that's what we're going to spend most of the time talking about today when we turn it over to Matt about leadership. And when you think about the next is vision, it's about the clarity and acceptance of your short, medium, and long-term goals within your organization. And if there's no vision or the team's not bought into that vision, your initiatives will fail. When you think about the next one, as it moves over, administration, and that's the depth and breadth of resources, people, and controls needed to operate your programs and projects. And if you lack these controls and these resources, your initiative will fail. And if you think about number 4 is technology, and that's the degree to which your organization uses technology. And if your organization doesn't have the ability to leverage technologies, your vision's going to fail. And then user support. This is the level of resources available to support employees in getting their jobs done. And if your organization is not prepared to support, train, and inspire employees, your initiative will fail. And so as you think about these pillars and your organization's competencies, we're going to open up our last poll of this section, and I want you to evaluate, as a whole, on average, what do you think your competency level is for your organization? Again, 1 being low or poor, and 5 being high or strong. And it'll be interesting to see as we open up the poll how everybody rates their organization's competencies.
Jan, I think I'll need you to do it because now my poll panel's totally gone. So if you just go to the little polls.
Yeah.
Mine's disappeared.
Drop down to the next one.
Yep, and then just hit launch.
Yep, there we go. All right, so
good.
Great, you can see that, and we'll go ahead and
then once everybody's done, you can just hit close and share the results. Although that's where we got stuck last time. That's where it got stuck. But.
All right, we got a lot of people voting, which is great to see. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and give it another second here. Looks like we got a good turnout. I'll go ahead and close that poll now. And I'll share. All right. It's great. So a wide range. We got a lot of people feeling that they're sort of confident or their competencies are middle of the road, some that are close to the 4s and 5s. And so that's great. I'm going to go ahead and hide the results again, and we should be able to move forward. So let me go back one. So we did this research, and we did all of our clients. We came up with our average ratings for the clients, and we went one layer deeper to each pillar to get to the average rating. And we found that people fell into 3 buckets. There are folks that had an average rating of a 1 or a 2, and we call that challenged, right? There's little or no leadership, the lacking purpose and vision, limited resources, maybe outdated technology, no user support, and less system usage, right? And then we found those that are high potential. These are folks that are 3s and 4s on average, and they, engaged leadership, limited vision, but maybe the resource constraint or evolving their use of technology and some user support and basic system usage. And then we have these folks that are 5s. They're extremely active leadership, clear vision, clear purpose, well-managed resources, modernized technology, world-class user support, and they're really helping us and inspiring us to drive the evolution of eBuilder. We call those folks inspirational. And so really the purpose of the success pillars is to help everybody move up their competency curve, because as they're more confident, as they're more inspirational, they will drive better results within their organization, which makes them more successful. And that's our goal. It's your success is our mission, and that's what we're really trying to do. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here as we gave the overview, and I'm going to turn it back over to Matt and Maggie for the rest of the presentation, because the folks we have on the phone here are really what we consider inspirational in their leadership, and we're hoping that we can share some best practices with the folks on the phone. So on that note, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks so much. And so first I'm going to turn it over to Dennis Clausen with Inova Health. He's going to talk to you a little bit about Inova Health, and we'll introduce Susanna, and then we'll get to the panel discussion.
Okay, thank you, Maggie. Thank you, everyone else. My name is Dennis Clausen. I'm the Director of Support Services in the Inova Facilities Management Department. In case you're not aware, Inova is basically the largest not-for-profit healthcare system in the Washington, D.C. area. We've got 6 acute care hospital campuses. We've got about 1,936 beds, as it says here. At the moment, we've got over 18,500 team members, employees. Our general sort of operating revenue is about $3.8 billion. At any given time, we probably have 100 active capital projects in being. And then we have another 40 or 50 what we call feasibility projects, ones that are waiting to be analyzed to get approval to become capital projects. And we spend about $250 to $350 million a year in terms of annual capital spend over multiple years. Everything you see on the left, the picture, in case you're wondering, was built using eBuilder as a process and whatever, plus quite a bit more, obviously. We began using eBuilder in 2009, as it says on the slide. In 2010, finally, and we can talk about that if someone has interest, it was integrated with Lawson, our then ERP system that we were using, and that was our ERP system until this past April. In 2012, we began to manage not only capital projects in eBuilder, but also the budgets and invoicing for all our engineering operations on our acute care campuses. And in this year, 1 April, we updated our integration from Lawson to Oracle, and we are frankly still working through that. But that's enough about Inova at this point. I think I'll turn it over to Susanna.
Thanks, Dennis. All right, Susanna?
All right. Hi, I'm Susanna Struble, CIP manager for the small town of Gilbert, Arizona. So, and I say small town because that is a purposeful name for the town of Gilbert. They like to be considered a town because they feel like it's more neighborhood, more kind, more communicative, more togetherness with their citizenship. So we are located pretty close to the Phoenix metro area. We're kind of what they would consider an East Valley community. So we have a 10-year capital program of about $3.21 billion with 309 projects. And that includes the streets, the traffic control, stormwater, parks and rec, municipal facilities, redevelopment, water and wastewater. So we do everything from underground all the way up through the building facilities for the community, as well as, landscape, etc. We have, this year, we will be managing about 172 projects that are worth $426 million or costed out at that. We currently have, of those 172 projects, 150 that are active. Our projects take usually somewhere between 3 and 4 years to from beginning to end. So it's kind of a cyclic type item. My CIT team is made up of about 12 staff members, which includes myself and a project analyst, and then 10 project managers that are managing that. And we have been using eBuilder since 2018, maybe even 2017. We consider ourselves a fairly new user of that, but I will tell you that one of our largest projects that we just completed, which is the town of Gilbert's public safety training facility, was about $100 million overall program. We managed that. It was the very first big project that we managed, but we managed it from beginning to end in the construction portion of that. And it was well, I guess, embraced by our construction industry as well as our project team on our side. So that's about it that I have.
All right, thank you, Susanna. So I'll turn it over to Matt. Now, Matt has warned us there's a South Florida thunderstorm rolling in, which can mean fun things for internet connections. So if we start to lose them for whatever reason, we will make it work, but we'll keep our fingers crossed.
And the scary part is it looks clear right now, which in South Florida, it looks clear. You should be worried because that's usually when storms roll in. But
correct.
Hopefully we'll be okay. First, thank you, Dennis and Susanna, for joining us today. I'm excited about this and something that we've been working on for a long time. And being able to sit down and talk with you all about it and hear from true leaders within their organizations about their challenges and successes through that they've had through the years is very exciting. So I'd like to start off in asking, when we go and we implement a system like eBuilder, a PMIS system, right? We always start off with goals, and usually the goals aren't to adopt a system, right? It's something much greater than that. So Dennis, I'll ask you first, when you guys were starting out and implementing eBuilder, what were your goals for the implementation?
When we first started with eBuilder, we knew we were embarking on a $850 million capital improvement program on our flagship campus, the Fairfax campus. We basically wanted to have uniform processes and procedures throughout the 8 or 9 projects that were involved in that program. And we also obviously wanted the ability to summarize reporting across all the projects in terms of, how far along they were, where we were in terms of commitments and things like that. So those were our main goals when we, initially started with eBuilder.
And how were those goals developed? Was this a top-down approach? Was it starting from the bottom up? How did you guys come up with those goals? And really, maybe when were those goals established?
We knew it because of both, corporate leadership, because we basically worked directly for corporate. And they wanted to be able to report across these things. And previously we were using spreadsheets and all of what you think of before. And when you try and roll 8 or 9 projects in and want to roll them up to 850, it becomes a nightmare. So we all knew that. So we went out and looked for a product to, make this work for us and get out of the belts and suspenders mode and into the, electronic mode, if you will.
Excellent. And Susanna, how about you? What was Town of Gilbert's goals going into the implementation or even the procurement of a PMIS system?
Okay, so for us, we were kind of in the throes of an optimization of our CIP procedures, processes. We had gone through kind of a huge hiatus where there were a few people and nobody understood why projects were in our CIP. Nobody understood why they were managing, and that was through a conversion of we had outsourced it and then it came in board, and so there was a lot of questions with that. And so from a leadership perspective, they said we need to do better than this, and they embarked kind of on a CIP optimization, which included enhancing us from a resource, so adding staffing, and then also basically kind of working to give us an opportunity to better understand what a good delivery method would be for a CIP project. As we embarked on that, got our hands around that, the team itself identified that Explorer spreadsheets, a filing system that not everybody used the same, was going to create some issues for us really optimizing that delivery method. And so we went out and said, what are our opportunities and what can we do here to basically, provide something that we can do that similarity or that consistent tracking of documents, reporting anything, being able to track our costs, our schedules. We also have right-of-way acquisition in some of the product that we have to do, and how do we track that as well. So we went out and looked at some of our surrounding communities on what they were using. eBuilder came through in one community. We went out and did some sandboxing with that in another project, and decided that eBuilder was really more owner focused than a lot of them, a little more out of the box than, you take it out of the box and start operating it immediately, than some of our neighboring communities, which were kind of building it from ground up. And so that is kind of, I guess, one of our goals was to say we want to be able to use it as soon as possible, but we also wanted the flexibility to basically arrange it around our processes, and eBuilder met that.
Excellent. So it sounds like with Town of Gilbert, right, eBuilder or the PMIS system just in general was a piece to a larger initiative of improving the overall efficiency of the department, or I guess maybe the increase in the capital spend, right? Because you talked about reviewing the business processes in general and determining if they were successful or not, as well as increasing staff. So am I correct in that eBuilder was just a piece of a larger puzzle?
Yes, and it continues to be a piece of that larger puzzle. I think unlike the others, which was kind of maybe, the resources, the understanding something needed to be done different came kind of from leadership down. Once we got our team in place, it was like, but we can't do the things you're asking us to do without having something like this. So eBuilder almost came from the bottom up through the process. So, but definitely a part of the overall expectation.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So what was, and I'll direct this, we'll start with Susanna this time. What was leadership's influence during the, once eBuilder was selected, what was leadership's influence during the implementation, and how were they engaged throughout that process?
Okay. So we did have the support of my boss, which would be the town engineer. So I sit as the assistant town engineer, and we report to him within the public works and city engineer, or in the engineering services division. So we had the support of our town engineer. We had the support of our public works director, understanding that this was something that was very, very much necessary for us to be able to produce efficiency, consistency, get these processes working. So they were there basically supporting that. I am going to tell you, above that, though, we had resistance from our finance group. We had some resistance from our budgeting group on the need for something like this, because we were somewhat paralleling systems when it came to cost management, and that became a challenge. Our IT group also had a little bit of a resistance to it, mainly because they were under-resourced for the changes that were occurring with them. They were putting in a new ERP system, they were putting in a plan review system all at the same time, and adding another system like this was going to be really a struggle for them to manage. So we basically had the support to go forward and purchase the system, work through it, and do that from an internal perspective. And when the time came, then start working in with the finance group and the budget group. I wouldn't recommend anybody to not have that support from your budget and IT group from the foundation. It's a struggle every day, but we are making a lot of headway because management is recognizing the benefit of the program. And so they're seeing how it ties to those other systems and how important it is to have that tie. So now management is, above them, is saying, no, you guys have to play well together and make it happen. So.
Excellent. And Dennis, how about you? What was leadership's influence during the implementation?
Well, I think for implementation, what was important for us, of course, was the corporate level sponsorship, but more important is implementing leaders fully understood both the program and the manner in which business had been done before, because you got to sort of line up with your organization as to how they've done business. Otherwise, you're liable to run crossways against them. When we implemented, we involved all our sort of, not only the staff, but both architects and contractors that we wanted to have in the system in designing what would run through processes in eBuilder, because we're very process oriented and have probably gotten more so over time. Okay. And then, we were lucky at the time. The implementation was at a nice time in 2009. 2009, the construction market was in the toilet. So some of the pushback you might otherwise get of, I have my own system, I'm not dealing with you, just wasn't particularly the case out of GCs. They needed and wanted to work. So they would say yes to almost anything. And over time, we've wanted to make sure that we provided eBuilder without charge to our users, because we wanted their involvement. We didn't want to charge it back to them. There's always resistance of folks who want to do business the way they've always done it and aren't used to the, way of doing things. And then, just like Susanna said, you have to involve corporate, as I alluded to in the slides. We needed IT support, but we had that from the get-go pretty much, because it's on the cloud. But we needed AP and finance and accounting support to agree to how we would operate eBuilder and how our processes would be built so that we could integrate with our ERP system.
Excellent. And so you talked about, right, you seeing pushback, maybe in facing challenges. What are some examples of specific actions that you can take as a leader to help resolve those issues and drive the results when the project or the team hits kind of a stall?
Well, I think you have to listen to what you're hearing from your users, and that includes the GCs and architects, because we basically use a workflow process for everything. PCOs, change orders, you name it, it all goes through a process. And in many cases, the GCs and whatever have to start them. So it's important to listen to what problems that the users have and either modify or change your workflow processes to talk to them and maybe become more efficient than they were otherwise, because you're now using an e-system as opposed to paper, rooting around.
Thank you for that. Suzanne, I see you nodding. I'm assuming you're in agreement there, but maybe you can add that or maybe some other specific actions that you took to help drive results.
I like what Dennis said there. Even though we were getting resistance from like our ERP group and some of the others in there, what we knew is that this still would give us benefit for our users, for our contractors, for our project managers, for our PMCMs external that we hired, and our designers. And so we really included them from the very beginning in, I think, training on what we thought the process should be, modified those, work through that with them, and listen. That is part of all of this, is to listen and understand. And I think 5 years ago, we probably didn't really understand what our own processes were, especially with us all being a fairly new team. So out of my 12 staff members, only two of them have been there longer than 5 years. So we were relatively new when we started this. So we were also learning what our processes were as we were building the system. So it really was listening. And then even though you may not have gotten support from that finance group or whatever it was, understand what those processes are for them, so you can set that up in eBuilder as well, to where we take our invoice system, so to speak. Our vendors basically submit an invoice approval in the process, and we go through that. It supplies the invoice. That is what we put into our ERP. We're still hand putting that into our ERP, but we understood how that worked and how important that was for us to manage, a design and bid type project, and understanding each of the different line items, et cetera, as it went through. Our ERP doesn't care about that. They care about the total. So it really is asking questions. It is understanding who your people are. And so, we basically had to spend a lot of time listening, sometimes in a conflicted way, sometimes in a very partnering way, but I think both resulted in some positive results for us.
Yeah, I think that's it's really good to hear. I mean, right, and it's something that we pride ourselves on as well, right? When we talk about going through implementation, is really just sitting down and listening to the clients, because you're right, coming in with the preconceived notions of how something should work or how something should be done, and not hearing that other side is definitely detrimental. And I like Susanna, you pointed out, right, knowing who your people are, right? So knowing who the team is and understanding strengths and maybe weaknesses, right, to put them in maybe the best position for success is paramount. So thank you for that. Really like that one. Let's talk a little bit about change management communication and where leadership is involved in that. Susanna, what influence did leadership have within the change management and communication, and how did they drive that?
Okay. So our organization prides itself in being a very futuristic looking, data managed organization. So as we've been kind of going through this, our organization also has been going in and kind of revisioning ourselves, resetting up the overall organization to kind of look at change management. So one of the things that has been developed in the last 2 to 3 years is a new vision for the community. We have 3 simple things that we have to deal with, and that is, I don't even know, anticipate, create, and help people. And those are the 3 things that we do. And when you look at each of the divisions within our environment, that really all of us kind of embrace that vision to say, yep, that's what we're here for. That's what we do as a municipality. We're here ultimately to help, and we have to do it in innovative ways, and be creative with it. And so, and we have to anticipate it. We have to know what's going to happen before it happens oftentimes. And so we all sit there under that. So that came from upper management, our council, all the way down through us. And it kind of set the stage. During the part of that, they also adopted what they call EDGE, which is employee. I got to write this down because I can't ever remember what it says. So excuse me, let me look for what those words are. Just a minute. Employee-driven Gilbert's excellence. And the intent of that is to apply some of the Six Sigma, the lean technologies. We've hired somebody like that on our team. That individual has been instrumental in helping us be able to sit down and say, what are our workflow processes? Who needs to do what, when, and where? What kind of information needs to be shared? And we've utilized that tool then to develop that workflow within eBuilder. And so I think our leadership really has promoted to say, you guys need to be doing things as efficiently and as leanly as you possibly can here's some tools. They actually provided us the tools. They didn't just say wave the wand and say, here it is, go make it happen. You know, they've really given us the tools. They support those tools. And so been very, very beneficial to be able to say, hey, we know we need to solve this. We have a gap here. How do you help us with it? And they're there to do that. So that's kind of how our organization works with change management. And we engage my entire team when it comes to a lot of that. We bring them into the meeting, have a 1 or 2 hour meeting and say, okay, what are the steps? How does this work? How do we answer these questions? And it's really helped drive change in our organization, I think, in an easier pattern.
Thank you for that. And Dennis, how about you at Innova? How is what is leadership's participation and influence during the change management process and communication?
Yeah, well, as I've said previously, and I couldn't agree more with Susanna, you have to be involved and understand what's going on when someone needs a change, whether it's a user, staff, or corporate decides to make a change, and you've got to sort of react to that accordingly. And it may be just changing your e-builder processes to mirror what a new change is in corporate or something like that. We've got to make some modifications as we change ERPs, for example, to stay current. And it may be just making sure that once you've made a change or you're doing something, you communicate that out to all your users in a reasonable manner, with either emails or if it's a major change, you can have a now go to meeting or just other meetings to make sure that you get that information out and fully understand it. And then for us, it's important to document those changes. In other words, we have both a project manual and then an e-builder user's manual that we update whenever we change that to feed out to people.
That's great, and I think something that we're often asked is when do we start the change management process? For something like an implementation like eBuilder, it could be a 6-month implementation, could be a 2-year implementation, right? If we're talking about an extremely large organization, at what point should we be starting the change management process? And I'll start with you, Dennis.
I think you should be doing it, constantly and uniformly with whatever is happening, because there's no telling whether it's staff or users or outside influences or corporate that's going to cause you to make a change. And if you react to that, you can often make processes better or cleaner or get more efficient while you're doing it. So I don't think you have to wait for any period of time to do it. And if you react, at least people get the feeling that you're going to actually do something about some problem they're experiencing.
All right. Excellent. And I see Susanna nodding. What is your thought on the problem?
I agree 100% with Dennis. I think change management and change is inherent to everything we do every day. I think we will strive towards excellence and get there if we're consistently looking and saying, is there something there that can be done more efficiently? Is it something within my control? And if it isn't within my control, then maybe it takes a longer lead time to bring people together to basically make that happen. But I do think it's a constant thing, and it is something that, like Dennis pointed out, is document. And I think that's important too, is that once you kind of set that baseline, if you're going to change it, document what those changes are. Make sure that you're advising the right people. We're going through that right now with our year-end closure process. We've kind of gathered all the troops together, and we're using what they call a RACI process, which is, identifying who's responsible, who needs to be accountable, who needs to be informed, and so we're developing those kinds of mechanisms as well. And, again, I agree 100%, Dennis. It's a constant thing, identify it, determine, and I think it's then determine who are the players and then what the time frame should be.
Excellent. I love that. And it is something that's usually if the client asks us, when should we start the change management process? I'm like, if you're asking us, it's probably too late, right? We probably should have started it already. If we're thinking about it, it's, we should immediately jump on it. And, doesn't have to be mass communications, but at least getting the process started and getting, starting to think through what that looks like and how we're going to communicate the changes and make sure that we have continuity and agreement across the board of what's going to happen. Suzanne, I'll start with you on this one. So what are you focused on now from a leadership perspective within your organization?
I think it is that integration. It's integration into those other softwares, into that ERP. We have an agenda manager program that we use that we need to and a document control system that is outside of eBuilder. So we're really focused at this point in time with that and our GIS and integrating eBuilder into those so that it can basically provide, I think, a bigger opportunity for the organization as a whole. We're ready to go beyond the benefits we've seen in our CIP team and get it out there. And reporting is big. Our organization is really pushing on performance management, measurement, actually being able to report that. I have all this data that we're gathering, so now it is, how do you take this data, present it to the right people in the right format to basically allow them to do their jobs better as well? Because there's a lot of information that we need to share with people and we need to get it out there. So our focus right now is kind of taking the basics of what we do every day, getting it out there and get some efficiencies and integration so we aren't double inputting. Like we don't double input our invoice. We don't put it in from the beginning and then have to put it into another place. So we're looking at that, and then how do we report out? And what is the reports that people are needing? We're currently putting in 5 or 6 different monthly reports for different people. A lot of the information is the same. Some of it is minorly different. So we're looking at doing a reporting mechanism that kind of increases some efficiency there. My PMs only need to respond to it once a month, but it can go out in different formats to different people.
That's excellent. Dennis, how about you? What is the focus now from a leadership perspective?
Well, our biggest focus at the moment is getting the current integration with the new ERP system, which is Oracle, to run as smoothly as the integration with the previous system, which is a collaboration because you're running an integration that both sends over data, which is automatically paid, which is terrific. You don't have to enter stuff twice or doing whatever. And you're also sending the invoice PDFs for the records of AP and whatever, so that when they get questions, that worked well with Lawson. Oracle is a bit more finicky. It's a bit more all-encompassing, and we've been working through pieces, and we've been doing it for the 18 months before go live. But as usual with go live, particularly with an integration, you start to discover stuff that, oh, they forgot to tell you there's this limit or that limit, or no, you can't do that way, you got to do that. But thank God I have 2 great eBuilder administrators who actually know both Oracle, more important, they knew Lawson, and they know eBuilder, and are able to work through it and change our processes and our data requirements as necessary to meet it. So that's been our total focus for about 2.5 months.
Excellent. How much longer, out of curiosity, do you think it'll take to get that completed?
I think we're real close now in terms of getting all the integrations, to go clean. And when I say all, because we have, in effect, 3 instances of eBuilder, one for the acute care engineering ops, one for capital projects, and then one separate one for our real estate operations, which are a little different, not by us. So I think we're there. This stuff is going over, and we process 300 to 400 invoices a week. So it's important that they go, because otherwise there's a real fast backlog.
Right, absolutely. Okay. Let me see here. Susanna, as a leader, what are the top 2 leadership best practices that you would share with other leaders in other organizations or within your own?
Yeah, really great question. And I think communication is key, and communication includes listening. You cannot communicate without listening. And maybe that's your first step in communication. I think Dennis referred to that earlier, is, you've got to learn to listen. Communication also has to be continuous and relentlessly applied. So you need to basically get out there and say, if you're going to say it once, oftentimes you've got to say it 3, 4, 5 times for it finally to connect. And so don't forget that one time is usually not enough to basically communicate whatever that is you're doing. But you have to make it simple. You have to make it direct. Sometimes you got to tell stories with it. You got to illustrate it, and you've got to give examples. And so everybody listens differently, and you have to learn those listening styles so that you can be able to communicate with that. And then oftentimes you have to affirm with action. So sometimes it does just take moving forward with that. So communication is one of them. I think the second one is empathy. Recognize that whoever you're dealing with has challenges of their own as well. And you need to basically be there to basically understand those as well as what your needs are as well. And so showing empathy oftentimes allows others to engage better and to help working through strategies if you're showing that empathy. So those are the two that I say are probably the top leadership that have helped me the most.
Excellent. I like both of those. Dennis, how about you? What are the top 2 leadership best practices that you would share?
Well, much as I hate to say this, mine are exactly the same. It's what I thought of beforehand. Number one, it's communicate with all users on a routine basis, whoever they are, and those outside stakeholders, and be willing to change to meet the changing situations. I can't tell you how many times we have rearranged workflow processes to either get more efficient or because some user said something that was valid or legitimate, or we were running into an issue. And usually when we have issues, more than basic, we're going to end up creating a workflow process to fix it. And then make it uniform and roll it out across the whole organization.
Excellent. So I'm going to encourage, if you're, for the attendees, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the question section. We'd like to hear from you all and make this more interactive, if you will. So if you have any questions, please type them into there. And maybe while we're waiting to see what comes through there, I'll ask this, Dennis, is there a particular book or podcast or series on leadership that you like to, or you enjoy listening to, reading through, to help, again, always keep your tools sharp, right?
I can't say that I would spend a lot of time doing podcasts or whatever on leadership at this point. Mostly because I come from a different background than most folks in terms of my previous background was 26 years in the military. So I think I have some notion about leadership and how that works, and I'm reasonably comfortable with that. And also I'm old enough that I'm not that into podcasts, frankly.
How about a book?
Okay, maybe.
How about you, Susanna? Any books that you're reading or podcasts that you use with leadership skills and staying on top of things?
Yes, I think one of my favorite, leadership authors is a guy named, I think it's Pete Leocini. The Ideal Team Player is one that is really good. It really kind of brings out humble, hungry, and smart, and how you operate with those 3 functions within a team. To me, that is something that our organization has promoted and asked us to basically kind of engage and adapt as a culture. And again, it kind of gets back to that: anticipate, create, help people. It works towards some of our key qualities that they ask us to be. They ask us to be bold, humble, kind, and driven. And sometimes you look at those 4 criteria and they seem to be opposite of each other, but if you take the opposite and apply it to the other, sometimes it helps the 2 basically work better together. So I would really promote the Patrick Lencioni's Hungry, Humble, Smart, The Ideal Team Player, and he has several other leadership books in there that are worth reading as well.
He does. I know from being part of the leadership team at eBuilder here, we've read through many of them. I actually don't think I know those 2, I have about 3 other books by him that I've read through. So looks like I have a few more that I could dig into.
Do you have one you'd recommend, Matt? I love this question. Do you have one? And I know Dan Boron probably has a couple if he wants to chime in too.
Yeah, the book Driving, I think it's called Driving Results by Peter Schultz from Porsche in the 80s. That was another book that we kind of took up as a leadership team and read through as a group and discussed often. A lot of really good insights from that. I've actually read it a couple times. It's one of those ones that I like to go back and read. And strangely enough, like I actually found a lot of information and just in really inspiration in his prior to getting to Porsche, just how he got there. A lot of things resonated with me, so that would be my recommendation.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I was gonna add in there. There's like Good to Great is another one. There's Execution is another good book. There's a book I was looking up to see the author that I read called Borrowing Brilliance, and it's less specifically on leadership, but it's about how you innovate and evolve to get stuff done. And it was a well-written book that talks about this person's journey at various companies in making them even better. And really, when you think about getting something done, you don't have to come up with the solution and the idea from out of nowhere. That someone has already done something like it in a similar industry. So how do you take that great idea that's worked well at another company or another organization and modify it enough for your needs? We happen to be in a non-competitive environment, which is great, so we can share best practices, but the book really illustrates how you can be successful by taking ideas from other organizations and adapting them to what you need to get done. And so that's just a couple of the books that I think are really inspirational.
I love that. I'd recommend, I'm reading, it's a little bit older, but I'm reading Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg right now. She's the COO of Facebook, and especially for the women joining us, you will not be disappointed. She talks a lot about the different challenges that women have rising into leadership, navigating, their career, especially, if you're a working mom. She talks a lot about that. So I highly recommend Lean In for everybody, but especially the women on the call. Maybe we should start an e-builder book club.
Actually, not a bad idea right there.
So I will tell you that we have several
I did see one question that I wanted to ask for Susanna. Veronica Hyde asked, what did the EDGE acronym stand for again?
Okay, let me find it again, because I always mess with what it means. So employees driving Gilbert's excellence. But it really is based off of some of the lean technology, the Six Sigma type work. It's kind of a blend of a lot of different things. We had a gentleman come down that I don't remember what program he had, but he worked for the city of Denver, and he applied this within the city of Denver, and now he kind of sells it in lots of other different places as well. But it's been very beneficial for our organization.
Yeah,
it looks like,
to that point, if another good book that I think relates, and I think it's called Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. And when you think about one of the concepts, and I think I'm getting the book right, but that EDGE example you're using is a great leadership tactic, because you're trying to communicate a standard, a message to your organization, and how do you get people in your organization to think the way you want them to think, and using acronyms like that that pack a lot of meaning are helpful in carrying that message throughout an organization. And I think it's a great tactic, and there's many ways to do that. But as a great leader, it's how do you influence people in your organization to move in the way you want them to move, and part of that, going back to what you both said, is great communication. And then underneath communication tactics is how do you get that message to carry. And in some of the Malcolm Gladwell books, he talks about how that viralness of a message really is about how easy is it to communicate it, and how easy is it to carry it from one person to another. And using acronyms like that makes it easy for somebody to take that message and move on. So I think it's a great tactic that you talked about there.
So we do several management meetings that start all the way up with our executive team, and then our second in command, our supervisories, and in those agendas, and that helps kind of drive communication from the top all the way down through our organization. But part of the agendas is always called, well, at least in the 2IC meeting or the second in command, is Trending Thursdays. And each of us are required to sign up on a yearly basis and come out with something similar to this and, share something for 10 minutes that will help us as leaders. And so, we've seen everything from the YouTube videos to, a book synopsis to just, everything through meditation even, kind of those types of things to help us with that. And that's what I like about our organization. They care about that. They give you those tools to continue to do that. And we try to do that then all the way down through our organization with our teams as well.
I love that. That's a great idea. It's a great idea.
It looks like we have oh, sorry, Susanna, go ahead.
They also add on their mandatory fun. So we also have to take 10 minutes of having fun together too. So in every meeting.
I like that.
Yep.
I was just going to say we have an audience recommendation too, Leap of Reason, Managing to Outcomes in an Era of Scarcity. So when we do our next webinar, which will be on the leadership pillar vision, we expect everybody to have read all 10 books that we have recommended, and there will be a pop quiz at the end. Matt, we kind of went through all the questions?
Absolutely, yeah, we did. Dennis, Susanna, thank you very much for joining us today and being able to share your experiences and knowledge. It was greatly appreciated. I think it was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.
Thank you so much. So everybody keep an eye out. The Vision webinar will be in July, securing a date. I've got a couple speakers for that, and just be on the lookout for that. And the remaining pillars will be throughout the summer. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week. And thanks again. Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much for letting us be here to help.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.